Hello, friends. Welcome back to our Dream Big Nation podcast. I am Lisa Williams, your host, and I'm so excited to bring the story of one of my friends and former colleagues, George Yueh, to our stage. George, welcome to our tribe.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. I'm so excited to be here with you and your community.
Absolutely. So I'm going to brag about this man a little bit because I had such a blessing to work with George for, how long were we together at K-Force?
I was at K-Force for close to 8 years, so we'll just,
Okay. Okay. And it was one of those experiences where we would see one another on winners trips because we were both very high performers. He was one of the fastest growing recruiters, account managers that came into the organization. And we're talking a $2 billion firm here, friends. He grew very fast. He was wildly successful. And so we would get to see each other, on these winners trips. I never got a chance to know him well, but I knew when he left that he was someone I wanted to stay connected with. And I just love all the things that you're doing, George. He is a peak experience coach. He left the corporate world and joined the Tony Robbins organization, was on the road there for quite some time. We're gonna dig in there a little bit, and now has hired himself with his ShapeShift coaching, and I'm really excited to share more details about that. So, George, let's just start by, I want you to just give our audience a quick little 411. Maybe on a little bit of your background, how you stepped into the corporate world and then decided to exit so drastically like you did.
I'm going to mess with your audience a little bit here.
Do it. I love messing with people.
Here's what I don't want you to know about me. Is the 8-year career that I had with Lisa was viewed as successful, but to me was an experience of achieving success without fulfillment.
Mm.
Here's what I don't want you to know about me. I got a rare opportunity to work for my hero, who pulled me out of the depression that I fell into when I realized that the higher I climbed, the less happy I was and the more alone that I felt. I got to work for the man that helped pull me out of that depression. And then in working for him, I fell into depression again. We oftentimes lead with the things on the resume to put out this idea of what we think people will be most connected to right now. And I would love to connect with your audience from the place of vulnerability, that I'm a human being. And through the course of this journey that I've been on of heartbreak, of relationship breakup after relationship breakup, after having all this expectation built about what success in life would mean to me and where I thought I would feel joy, I didn't. I was forced to go through dark periods of my life where I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted because everything that I'd been taught that I wanted wasn't bringing me the emotional experience that deep down we are all looking for, which is joy, fulfillment, happiness, peace, and harmony in our life. Think about all the reasons why we do things, why we go to work, why we go to school, why we pack the 401k plan. It's so that eventually we can get to a place where we feel peace. And I didn't have any of that, yet I was following the model that everybody gave me. And so my story and who I am today is a man who believes in living life from intuition, from courage, from faith, and having fun along the way. Because I realized when I told myself I'll have fun and happiness and joy when I make the 6 figures, when I become number one, when I go work for my hero, when that I'm postponing my happiness, and I can actually create happiness from the inside out versus the outside in. And those are some of the learning lessons that I learned about who I am that brought me to a place of where I am today in my life in the external world, And as opposed to creating success, wealth, health, happiness in that order, I'm doing it in the reverse order,
Mm.
where I found a way to create happiness and joy as a mindset, not as a thing to achieve or a thing to be or a thing to even do, but a person to be. And that's what I do want you to know about me.
You just shifted my entire podcast, like just right there. And I feel like I absolutely love that you did that. So let's unpack this a little bit, because I think let's just dive into this imposter syndrome that most of us suffer from, or this approval addiction, because I think that's kind of what you're referring to in a lot of ways. You and I have talked about this before. Externally, everyone would have thought, like, how could this guy not be on top of the world? What was going on inside that made you, how did you put on that face? Because I would never have dreamed that you were going through that, George.
Yeah. I'll look at unpack imposter syndrome as a separate entity, because to me, imposter syndrome means a little bit something different. But what had happened was I was following a model that, and I was so, because we're high performers. We have a bias for taking action. We don't know how to stop. Our work is actually to slow down, because we'll just go and go and go until the point where we burn out, and we're just like, wait a minute, what is going on? What just happened? And when my partner, who we worked together, and she was on the team at the time, when we split up, it revealed this whole thing that all of my eggs were in this basket of this relationship, and all my happiness was in this relationship that actually wasn't even close to being the right one for me. But because I had this like expectation of what a relationship would look like and what it would mean, and I was forcing myself to like feel a sense of happiness. But when we force happiness, when it's not there, naturally things fall apart. And then that revealed to me that I had the beach house, I had the apartment, I had the job, I had, everything that on paper would make sense. But what I was feeling was loneliness. I was feeling dissatisfaction. I was feeling like, yeah, I'm good at sales, I'm good at doing what I do, and I don't actually enjoy any of it. It's just a means to make money, but I don't like it. And I started being like, what's the point in ever doing something if I'm not having fun, if I'm not getting joy? And then, by the way, the thing I'm suffering through to get to the thing that I think I want, when I get that thing that I want, and it still doesn't bring me joy. What the fuck's the problem here, people? Like, what is going on? How could this have possibly happened? And natural curious George starts kicking in and asking all these questions. Why was I living my life this way? What was I learning about myself? Where had I started making decisions that were actually building momentum in the wrong direction? And that's where personal development, that's where coaching, that's where spiritual development, that's where I dove deeper into my yoga practice and sought out help, because we're all human. We all have blind spots when we're in the driver's seat. And conditioning has such an impact on how we make decisions. It's the voice inside of our head that says this: I should. It's called rationalization. Where does rationalization come from? It comes from indoctrination of what we're taught from parents, schools, society, and peers. And to loop back around to your point, Lisa, it's this, sometimes it's very much so about, who do I need to please? Who do I need to prove myself to? Is it parents? Is it my partner? Is it my spouse? Is it my kids? Am I trying to set an example based on who I think I should be? And we run this pattern of our thoughts impact our feelings, and then our feelings impact our decisions impact our actions that we take. And when there's something there, when there's a virus there that is in that computer software that's not getting you what you want, and you're not experiencing a feeling that you're looking for, one of the greatest revelations that I ever learned was that when you can put into context the emotional reasons, and guys are going to hate hearing this because we know men, they're just like, emotions, what? You can put into context.
Wait, can I go get my husband really quick? Can we break here?
Bring him over. We'll make this a threesome.
George knows Paul, so he can laugh. He knows what.
But when you can put into context the emotional reasons why you do something, everything can change. You no longer have to like do the 10 steps to get to where you want to be. You can start learning how to use your mindset, to use gratitude, to start bringing you into a place present in the now, and start really looking at what turns me on, what makes me come alive, what are my gifts, not just what I'm good at, because I'm good at influencing people. I'm good at using language as a way of manipulating people to make a decision that favors me. I don't like that. That doesn't make me feel good. And so what are my gifts and the talents that make me feel good about myself, that are in alignment with my passions, what I think the world needs, what have I struggled before in the past, and how does that translate to how I want to help other people? And that is where I started finding clarity about who I am and why I am on this planet, like why I'm actually here. That is going to give me a sense of purpose in my life. So when I'm on my deathbed, I will look back at my life and be like, I'm proud of the person that I was. I'm proud of the person that I became. I'm proud of the things that I did, because not because of what I should do or because I needed to do it, because it's what I wanted to do. It's because it's who I am. And living life from that lens is the game changer that I help people go inward to find, so they can live in alignment in their life and experience the life that they want to live. And that is, to me, is what puts us into a peak state, a peak experience, is that when we can sit outside and feel joy just by looking at what's around us, being present in the moment with who we are, and trusting with faith in who we are and our intuition, and having the courage to follow that when fear shows up. And that's where, to me, imposter syndrome comes in, is when we're in alignment of like, okay, I know this stuff. I know who I am. I know what I want, but it feels edgy. It feels afraid. Like, I want to start the business, but I'm not sure if I have enough knowledge. I'm not sure if I have enough skills. I'm not sure if I have enough experience. That, to me, is imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? And my distinction about imposter syndrome is that there's so many courses out there that says overcome imposter syndrome, get rid of imposter syndrome. Fuck that. If you're not feeling imposter syndrome, you're not playing the right game.
Right.
I'm not talking about validation. Wanting other people to like you is different. I'm talking about, you want to get here. You're here. There's a fear block right here that's holding you back from taking action. But you know that this is in alignment with your purpose and who you are. And it's edgy because it's the unknown. And you're telling the story that you're not good enough. That's the healthy form of imposter syndrome that I tell people, don't get over that. Because whenever you're playing a big enough game or a big enough dream, you're going to be at your edge. And that edge is going to involve imposter syndrome, and it's going to involve fear. Don't get rid of the fear. Take action through the fear. Take action through the imposter syndrome. Don't get rid of imposter syndrome. Get good at imposter syndrome. Know that it's a milestone on your journey that says you are playing the right game. You're playing the big enough game. You're feeling fear because you're dreaming big. If you're not dreaming big enough, you're still in your comfort zone, and that's not where the extraordinary happens. Imposter syndrome is healthy. Allow that to be there. Don't think that you need confidence. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It's a result. What you need is courage, which is when fear and taking action come together. Knowing that the fear is there, knowing that it's false evidence appearing real, and saying, I'm going to decide to take action anyways. With the faith, knowing that it's going to be okay, because I'm in alignment when I know who I am and I know what I want, and this is where I know I need to be.
I'm pushing through it. That's where God has always met me the most, is when I come from an authentic place and push past the fear. You said something this is actually, Lisa, I'm putting my mom hat on right now, because my oldest is 21 and he hasn't had a relationship, a love relationship, but he has feelings for someone. And he's made several comments to me that as soon as like I lose this weight, or as soon as I, get this level of, fitness, I'm going to ask her out. And you said something, you had all your eggs in that one basket with, I can't even remember her name. I know who you're talking about, the blonde, right? Oh my goodness, I can't do it as a mom. What could I give him as a tool, do you think, that could help him push past that?
That's a great question. What we're having a conversation right now is about his level of self-worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Can I just connect him with you, George?
you can have him play the podcast. Absolutely. I'd be happy to help him. I'd be happy. I mean, first of all, validating that his emotions are real is this first thing. Like,
Yeah,
hey, you want something and there's something that's important to you and you feel like you've got to do something different, be something different in order to be able to get the thing. And it's natural. It's just not true.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely. How did you,
this is really like the really important thing is not to tell him like, this is why you're worthy, this is why you're special, this, let me mom you and pay, like, this is why I love you so much and why you just need to feel like you just need to ask him, babe.
that's even how I talk to him. I totally call him babe.
Yeah, if you needed to lose the weight and look sexy, and if you needed to change who you physically are for this person to like you, would that person like you when you're older and fat and wrinkly? Would that person be prone to looking for someone else that's even sexier? And even if you were sexier and better looking and lost more weight, wouldn't be sure there's other people out there with that? And if that's true, would you want to be with that person?
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Would you
Well,
want to be with somebody who likes you for who you had to change to be? Or would you prefer to be with somebody who likes you as you are?
yeah, that's spot on. And that's such a great, because you did exactly what I have been doing. I've been I've been talking to him. I've been pouring belief into him about all the things that I think are great instead of just asking meaningful questions that makes him think. That's wonderful. George, let's talk about, you shared with me an experience that you had when you were 16. And
Mm.
I would love to have our audience hear about that, because I think that really probably was a foundation for all the change that's happening in your life now.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and this is one of those things that for a lot of people would be edgy, but for me, it's what I want you to know about me. Not because I need to feel seen or validated by you, but I hope that in this story, you you hear it with insight. Don't listen for information, but listen for insight about what this means for you in your life and where there might be something parallel in your story. So, when I was 16 years old, I made a decision to get into a car with a drunk driver. And that driver happened to be a Formula One race car driver. Let me back up for a second. I grew up in a well-to-do area. It was kind of like the brother-sister relationship to Newport Beach. And so I grew up around a lot of affluence. And my family and I lived humbly. We had enough of what we wanted and what we needed, but nothing in the luxurious realm. But I had a lot of friends that had that lifestyle. And one of these friends was a Formula One race car driver, even though he was in high school. And he drove an S500 Mercedes Benz. And we all got into the car and he just starts flooring it. And I grew up in a town where it's very hilly, there's windy roads, and he's just like fishtailing and swifting and drifting through these turns. And I am panicking. I'm like, this is really dangerous. Like, forget about drinking and driving, just this driving alone is dangerous. And I was drinking a beer in the passenger seat, rolled the window down, threw the beer out the window, and then put my safety belt on. And in 10 seconds, give or take, we're hitting another corner and the car hits a puddle. It fishtails, hits a curb, rolls over, and then falls off of a 100-foot cliff. We get knocked unconscious. And I remember sitting in the seat and just starting to come to, and then seeing this bright light in front of me as I'm like still in my daze. And then I realized that the car that I'm sitting in is completely engorged in flames. Fight or flight kicks in. And I start trying to open the door, but we're stuck in this cliff and in this crevice. And so the door isn't opening. And I'm trying to kick the door open, and it just is, it's jammed shut. And I remember looking out into the fire and just thinking to myself, this is it. It's over. And my friend starts shaking me. He's like, George, your window is down. And because I rolled that window down moments before the car spun out of control, we all managed to climb out that window unscathed, unharmed. And we started climbing the cliff. I almost fell off. And we started climbing, but my friend pushed me back up. We started climbing and climbing. And then by the time we got to the top, the ambulances, the fire trucks, the police cars, the sirens, it was like a movie where it was very surreal and very eerie. And it was still kind of just like, what is happening? And then I remember just turning around and then just seeing the fire at eye level. And I remember looking into the stars that night. And for the first time in my life, I just felt this divine intervention. Like someone, something up there was looking after me. I'd been given a second chance. And in that moment, I just remember hearing this voice just saying, not yet. And I turned to my other friend and I just said, we were spared for a reason. Like we were given a second chance to do something important with our lives. I don't know what that is, but we should be fucking dead right now. And we're not. We walked away with minor bruises and not even cuts, just like minor bruises. And I didn't know what that meant until years later, when I was working for our company, going through my first bout of depression, and I'd been taking a lot of space from work. And I remember sitting at the beach in depression, having made $250,000 a year, and just feeling like, what is all the point of this? Like completely lost. And as much of a privilege and a first world problem as that sounds, it was my problem. And I was also going through heartbreak at the time. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, it had been like 4 or 5 months of just darkness every day, not ability to smile, not ability to laugh, not being able to get out of bed and wake up and show up to work. And I was really blessed at the time to have leadership that was supportive of what I was going through emotionally. And I remember sitting on the beach and just thinking to myself, what if it just ended? What if it just stopped? And then I remembered this car accident. And I just said, there's no fucking way this is over. There's no way this can be it. There's no way I survived that for this to be the end. I didn't know what the forward looked like. I hadn't found any Tony Robbins. I hadn't hired my coach yet. I didn't know what was going to happen next. But it was just this belief of faith that I'm not sure if I'm going to get through, but I'm going to have faith that I'm going to. Mm-hmm. And when I said that I'm a man who chooses to live his life from a lens of faith, I have a very deep-rooted belief based on my human experiences of life, based on a very painful experience in my life, that it's not the silver lining, it's the gold lining for me. Mm-hmm. That I look at life from a lens of things just tend to work out.
You were spared for a purpose. Absolutely. How about your friends? Have they found their purpose?
There's 4 people in the car. I would say that I keep in close touch with one, and I would say that he lives a very good life, and that he's found, he was laid off in the pandemic and then ended up starting his own business, fully pursuing his art passion through graphic design. He had his first kid, and he's in a beautiful marriage with a beautiful woman. And I would overall say that he has grown a tremendous amount, and that I actually look at him with inspiration because of the life that he's created. And there's always a level. I can't answer for him because I've never asked him like, hey, what's your purpose and are you living it? But I do feel that he's living a life that's in fulfillment. And then the rest of the people I haven't really kept in touch with, so I wouldn't be able to answer.
I would be so curious to see what's going on. You guys could make like a whole book on that, you know? I mean, and you said something that I think important because um, you know, that's the lens that you look at life through and your truth. And for everyone, there's often that moment that's life changing, and it's not typically that dramatic. You know, right now we're going through, those people that are listening later, we're in the midst of the COVID crisis. So many families have been impacted. And like for some right now, their tragedy may be that they literally were laid off in February and they have not been able to find work for their family since. You know, what would you say to those people that are in this time of transition and maybe feel stuck and don't know what to do?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought this up because it's very topical to those, and it's important to acknowledge the collective state of grief that we are going through. And I'm not, and I'm talking about not just the COVID deaths, but it's heightening a sense of our sensitivity to loss, loss for life, loss of expectation of how we think life should be and what we thought life was going to be for us. So many people were like, oh, 2020, the year of clarity, the year when I'm going to figure out what I want. And it's so oftentimes that we don't get what we want, but we get what we need. And I know that's a very sensitive statement to say in looking at the pandemic, but there are some things that we can't control. And I have a belief that things do happen for a reason, that pain, suffering, loss, hardship, grief is all a purification and preparation process for personal heroism. I would tell people that you have a right to feel what you're feeling. I would also tell people that while you want to get out of that feeling, feel it for as long as possible. Don't run from your emotions. Don't resist the reality in which whatever is coming up for you, because there are lessons to be learned. The greatest traumas I've had in my life have turned into the greatest treasures because I've allowed myself to feel the emotion. And we don't tend to teach that. It's
Mm-hmm.
because the emotions are messy, of sorrow, of guilt, of shame, of doubt, of fear, of apathy, of jealousy, of comparison. All these emotions I have allowed myself to feel. And if you're anything like me, you want to rush out of those things as soon as possible. And
Yeah.
learned is that there is meaning behind all of them. And while you crave an answer for what that is today, allow yourself the grace of letting go of the need for that certainty right now. Yes, take care of yourself. Yes, do what you need to do to get by. And fear will be there for you. And this is going to be one of the most powerful learning experiences of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you were, let's picture this. You were on that beach and you were, from the outsider looking in, at the top of your game, and yet super dead inside. So what did you do to shift that?
And that's a great question. And this is where I was going to go next. Seek support.
Yeah.
Support. Ask for help. You're
Mm-hmm.
not alone. Even if you think you don't have friends, even there is now more than ever a world of information out there and a world of people that are dying to help other people.
Yeah.
And seeking support from family, and if you don't have family, friends, and if you don't have friends, go online and look for communities that offer support in the particular area that you feel like you are learning how to navigate gracefully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Because
you were,
because we're human beings, we thrive on human connection, and we've all had our lessons in our own way of learning what connection means to us, because we've been, in a way, we feel like we've been severed from skin to skin connection. But what I found is that I've allowed myself to open myself up to vulnerability, And I love Emily Lockhart's definition of love. She says it's giving someone the power to destroy you and trusting that they won't use it. Well, vulnerability and love are the same thing. We cannot experience love without vulnerability, without showing who we are, without risking our emotional state. And it feels edgy, but when we lead with that vulnerability, it creates heart to heart, soul to soul connection.
Mhm.
It's why I led the opening to the podcast with the way that I did, because I want to show you who I really am and what feels edgy for me in my humanness, because we're all human. And we feel like oftentimes an obligation to live up to a certain expectation of who we think we need to be and should be. And it's okay to say, I give myself permission to take a break.
I
I give
love that.
permission to slow down in order to speed up. And I give myself permission to feel whatever's coming up for me right now
Mhm.
and go through that. Go through what you're going through now and go through the things that you haven't gone through. I can't tell you how many times I hear stories about where something is triggering them today, and what it's really a resemblance of and a reflection of is something that happened in early childhood that hasn't been dealt with yet in a healthy way. It might have been dealt with a pattern of control, a pattern of hustling, a pattern of working hard, a pattern of suppression. But now it's time to look at the emotional layer, because our
Mhm.
emotions know so much about ourselves and who we are. And it's okay. It's okay to ask for support. It's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to grieve. And in grief, so many times ask that the question is asked, what's the meaning of this? Why is this happening? And I invite you to ask a different question, because in the moment it's very hard to come up with that answer. But what's a question that will guide you to the next step is, how can I make meaning of my life? How can I honor my life as an extension and representation of the person I lost or the thing that I lost? What can I do to make my life meaningful through an act of service, through helping someone else? You don't have to have the answer right now, but the question, asking the right questions, leads us. We get so addicted to like, what do I do? What do I do? What's the answer? Where's the next thing of certainty? Just holding the space for the question, a really powerful question. Eventually you ask the right question, you're going to get the right answer. Live into the
Your mind will find it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you left corporate America, I guess the traditional corporate America, and you went to work for your hero. Now, had you already transitioned and were you in a good state when you made that move?
Yes, I had gone through a lot of powerful work with my coach, setting up my coaching business, and I would say I was in a relatively good place, considering I was still working for a company that I was like, this is not it.
Yeah.
And it took another 3 years to leave our previous company before
From for that sitting on the beach, it was about
yeah,
3 years. Okay.
yeah. It took another 3 years. So when I said in it as long as you can, I really meant that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of learning to be done. I was blessed with an opportunity, and my income definitely slowly like diminished, but I was luckily in a position where I could really honor extra space to go through that. And I think I grew a lot more because of that. Um, and then when I transitioned, it was this like, okay, I'm still feeling a little bit energy depleted from being in this place for so long. And my coach was just like, bro, you just need fresh energy right now. Like, we were working on building my coaching practice, and then the Tony opportunity came up. And I was like, okay, I know that I hadn't had the energy enough to like actually coach on the side while working for our last company. And I was like, do I do the coaching thing and just quit? Or do I quit and go to Tony Robbins? And my coach was like, bro, you just need fresh energy right now. Like, you need new environment, new space, new people. And I just knew
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to like go all in yet on coaching. Like I did, like I've made this decision now. Um, and it was my intuition. It was just like, I'm not ready. I'm
Yeah.
not, and I get the
Yeah.
whole, like, you're never ready, so take action anyways. Like, I get that. But at the end of the day, you're either going to be a fuck yes or a fuck no for something. And your follow
Yeah.
through is very much so indicative of, are you truly really 100% able to commit, or are you not? You can't
Well,
force.
you still took action. It may not have been I hired myself like straight cold turkey, but you still, I think that's a really great point, because let's think about that. The typical, American. They go to college because they think it's what they're supposed to do, and we're taught that's what you do, and you graduate with like this piece of paper that it's like you obtained something. And sometimes I think it's like that's the end of our learning, and yet we're meant to have these iterations of ourselves. So you still, I mean, that was the journey you were meant to do. That was part of that growing process for you. So now I'm curious, one question. So Tony teaches about the 6 human needs. What are your core human needs?
I've oscillated with this question a lot because you know, prior to the work, obviously was certainty and significance.
Yeah, I was
And,
going to say, it's definitely one of them, certainty, isn't it?
so it used to be. And I, as much as like I went to Tony Robbins and I was like, okay, I want to like shift to contribution and love and connection, or shift to contribution and growth. The truth was I hadn't spiritually developed enough of that, where that was really where that was actually my truth. um I will say that certainty is definitely not, and I fully actually now felt like, while I do want certainty in my life, because we all want certainty, we all have the needs, we just prioritize them differently.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that I've transcended certainty as being a top 2 driving force for me. And I would say that love and connection is probably number 1 now, like congruently. And it's not just like with other people, it's what makes me feel love and connected with myself, and making sure that I never leave that. That's number 1. I used to say like, oh, like I drank the Kool-Aid and was like, okay, yeah, contribution is first because it's the highest source of fulfillment, and pleasure is temporary, and happiness is a mindset, and joy and fulfillment is a spiritual need. So I'm like, I want that contribution. And then I realized that I can't contribute from a cup that's empty. I have to
Mhm.
be responsible for filling my cup up first, so I can pour that cup into contribution. And so love and connection is what fuels that and makes me come alive right now. Like right now in this moment, I love connecting with you. I love doing that. And that drives me to contribute from an authentic place, where like right now it's not depleting me of energy, it's fueling me of energy. And so that fuel then goes into contribution. Whereas if I'm just contributing, I will actually get depleted over time and need to recharge. So knowing that, self-care first, contribution second. And my best version of self-care is um is love and connection. And now that I'm saying it, probably growth even before contribution. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to be Tony Robbins, where everything in life is about contribution first. Like, I think it's like I got to take care of me first, and then
Mhm.
I'm able to contribute from that place. So for me, it's probably love and connection and growth, and then contribution, and then variety, and then certainty, and then and significance. I mean, we all need that, and it's hard to really measure where that one falls in. But I'm so certain about who I am now, and I'm open to the possibility of growing, keeping myself in a state of growing. So yeah, that would be my long
Well,
way.
and that's the great part, is you do have the ability to change. I mean, it's scientifically proven. Do you use have you done much in like neurolinguistics or, you know, tones? There's so much work now about literally the science behind retraining your brain. Do you
Are
do
you talking
anything
about
like that?
neuroplasticity?
What is it?
You're talking about neuroplasticity?
Neurolinguistics, or,
Like neurolinguistic.
neurotones, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's so much now being discovered from a neurological perspective. Yeah, I've definitely worked in how to start retraining my brain and opening up my neural pathways in my brain using neuroplasticity tools and neurolinguistic programming. Reframing is one, right? I mean, but really, this goes back to emotion. It's like elevating our vibrational frequency through elevated emotions changes the pathways inside of our brain. And so that is definitely something, like, I'm not an expert in, but I
Yeah.
I've done a few things that help open up new neural pathways, and that, in the integration with psychedelics and stuff like that creates new connections in the brain as well too.
You're a big Burning Man fan, if I recall. I am going to have that experience sometime. I haven't done it yet, but
You and
hey,
Paul would love it. If you're right.
I know. Oh, I know I would love it. I think Paul's need for certainty might struggle a little bit, but it's a little out there, isn't it?
He actually got crushed. That's where it was like, that's where I had a major breakthrough in my need for
I
certainty.
love it. Yeah. So you were working for your hero, and then you found yourself kind of in that pit again. And that's when things really started. That's when you really took action to hire yourself. And what you're doing now with your peak experience coaching. Share a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, that journey is defined by, sometimes answers come from really abstract places. And the pandemic hit, and I was just moved to Detroit, and all the workshops that got canceled. And I had already been in a very like clear place that I was like, I just don't like this job. Like, I don't like doing this. This is not. And then to make matters worse, the pandemic had started, and all the workshops were canceled, and I was stuck in isolation in Detroit by myself, where I didn't know anybody, and I was separated from just everything. It was, I say that, I laugh and say that it was a spiritual retreat that I've always wanted, that I didn't know I was on at the time, because it wasn't in India.
Yeah, yeah.
And George Floyd gets killed. And it's a total pattern disrupt, but it's also if I'm being 100% honest, it was a excuse to let out my rage. And it was a place to direct my rage. And I've never been a person to like post about social issues and activism, let alone have the topic of race on my social media account. But I started doing that, and I was so triggered because I've experienced, teasing and racial stereotypes, but no, obviously nothing to the experience of what it's like to be Black in America. But I experienced my version of pain of racism growing up as a kid, and so this was like a big trigger for me. And the first weekend of protesting starts in the country, and very quickly all 50 states join in. Poland and Amsterdam and Paris and the UK and all of these places around the world are starting to protest. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, this is a revolution. This is the Civil Rights Act happening in chapter 2 now, and this is going to be studied. Like, this is a moment in American history that will be looked at just like what we were studying in American history when we looked at Martin Luther King, the Civil Rights Movement, Malcolm X, and all these people that were major leaders and influencers of their time. Now it's happening again in 2.0 version. And I thought to myself, years in the future, if I ever have children, they'll look back and study this period of history of Black Lives Matter during the pandemic, and they'll ask me, what was it like? And I'll either tell them the story that I read the news from Instagram and Facebook about what it was like, or that your father was a man that stood up for what he believed in, and that he was a part of the revolution. And I said, in that moment, I was like, that's the story I want to tell. That's the man I want to be. And so I suited up. I got a backpack ready. I put phone numbers of pro bono protest attorneys on my arm. I put my sister's cell phone number on my arm. I left my phone at home, and I got in an Uber, put the mask on, and I had all this adrenaline pumping through my body. Like, this is what it feels like. Like, by the way, Los Angeles was in riot. It was a shit show. Like, it was all over the news, burning buildings. Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade was getting broken into left and right. People were graffiti. It was just a mess. And I'm in Detroit. Like, the only reference of Detroit I have is like Eminem, Slim Shady, 8 Mile. And I'm just thinking, it's going to be a mess here. Like, this is what it feels like to go to war. This is what it feels like to have an expectation that you might get injured, that you might go to jail. And I'm still choosing to do it. And I'm just like, I got adrenaline just like pumping like it's never felt before ever in my life. And I get to downtown, and it's totally different than what I thought. The walking hadn't started yet, And the protest leaders were making local demands on a loud phone to local leadership, but it was calm. None of the buildings were boarded up. And I just started like asking people like, hey, is anyone like worried about like writing? And like, is this going to be a thing? And all the people were like, no, like this is Detroit. Like we have pride for our home. Like we don't mess with our own home here to prove a point. Like we have pride in this city and we have to look out for our city. I was so interested about that. It was so different than what I expected. And we started walking, and police joined in walking with us. They were escorting us down the street. It was peaceful. It was this like whole different aura of energy, of positivity, of love. People were passing out waters and food and snacks and shirts and masks. And you had people, black people, white people, Muslim people, naturally all different backgrounds. And this black woman was standing next to me, and I like pulled her to the side. I just said, hey, what's like going on with you right now? Like what's coming up? What does this feel like to be you in this moment right now? And she says, you know, George, for the last 400 years, black people in America have gone through racism, social injustice, death, oppression. And there's an emotional burden that comes with that. And for the first time, we feel like that burden is now being shared. It's not gone, but it's being shared. And she said, look at the crowd. There's a Muslim girl over there. There's an Indian person over there. There's an Asian guy over there. There's a Mexican guy. There's a white girl over there. There's an old guy over there. Like all these people from around the world are coming together for Black Lives Matter. And she starts crying. And she just says, I just feel like we're heading in the right direction. I feel like we're closer to justice than we ever have been. And I feel confident that change is coming. And it was just this beautiful moment of like experiencing hope and faith. And I gave her the biggest hug, and we kept on marching. And I remember coming home and sitting in my chair, and I'm floored. I'm lit. And I just remember asking myself, what the fuck just happened? And two things came up. The first thing was that when we make a decision to do something bigger than ourselves for other people, it allows us to tap into a level of courage to do something that we thought we would never, ever do. Do the impossible. Do something outside of our character that stretches us into a realm of impossibility. I never would have viewed myself as someone who would be a protester. I never protested about anything in my entire life. Mm-hmm. It's like if I were to say, here's $100 million, would you go move in front of this moving bus at 80 miles an hour? No. Yeah. Hey, Paul's in front of a moving bus at 80 miles an hour. Boom, you go. Yeah. And so the second thing that came up was, if these people can go through this amount of 400 years of social injustice, of systemic racism, of hatred, of bigotry, of being pushed down by society, and still have hope and faith that everything is going to be okay, I can quit this fucking job, move home to Los Angeles with my parents in Palos Verdes, start my fucking coaching business, and everything is going to be okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it was coming from that place of, I coach not for me, I coach to serve, I coach to help. And that gave me the courage to push through all the fear of what's it going to be like moving home? What's going to be like? Who's going to want to coach with me during a pandemic? Who's going to have the money to coach with me during a pandemic? Am I going to be able to do? What do I do? All that fear, just that hope and faith and courage and intuition, because in that moment, I heard a voice. The same voice that said, not yet. The same voice said, it's time. Mm-hmm. In that moment, I realized that that's intuition. And so when I have an intuitive hit to do something, I know with absolute certainty now that I can trust that. No matter what, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I don't know where the next client's going to be. I don't know where the next thing's going to come from. But I know if I get an impulse, an intuitive hit, I know what it feels like in my body. And I know that I can have, when I link that to something bigger than me, it'll give me the courage to push through fear and make something happen with the faith that it's going to be okay. Because it's intuition. It's who I am. It's not who I think I need to be or who I should be. It's who I am. And whenever we decide based on who we are, things work out. Guaranteed, 100%. I can say that with certainty. And that's how I decided to open up my coaching business. And I've never experienced the level of freedom, of peace, of harmony, of success and fulfillment. And it's as if I'm bending reality. It's as if things that I want are just coming to me effortlessly because I made that decision through fear, because I got good at imposter syndrome, and because I said, I'm doing this. I'm making the decision. It's decided. And now I look at things like retirement and I laugh and I'm like, why would I ever stop being who I am? It's not
Right.
about work. I don't work. I don't have a job. I don't even have a career anymore. I have a way of living.
Mm-hmm.
I have something that lights me up so much. And I found a way to add value to other people's lives because I've been through struggle. I've been through depression. I've been through identity crisis. I've been through confusion. I've been through lack of clarity. And now I get to help people through what I've been through. That's the secret to life. That's the secret to finding the things that we want. We don't have to focus on the things that we want. We have to focus on how we can help. People think business is about making money. My loves, that is not what business is for. The purpose of a car is not to buy fuel. Money is an energy exchange that helps us move forward, advance a cause, start a movement, add value, provide a service. That's the purpose of a business. That's the mission of a business. The money is there as just fuel. And when we start looking at life from a different lens of advancing something forward from a place of growth and contribution and from who we are, everything changes. Everyone's story is going to look different, and what that is, maybe that means being a mom, maybe that means being a real estate agent, maybe that means being in finance. If it is actually you, you're in the right place. But if you're listening to this and you're like, God, I'm fucking out of alignment, something's off, then start asking questions. Start
Mm-hmm.
going back and being like, who am I? What do I believe in? What do I value? What are the stories in my life? What are the painful experiences in my life? Because that's where the gold lining is, my loves. That's where the answer that you're looking for is inside of you. And once you tap into that, there's going to be a moment that just says, this is what I need to do. This is what I want to do.
And well, what I see, George, that you've done is you have truly tapped into what you're called to do. I mean, you come alive when you talk about what you're doing now. And I can tell you've stepped into the leadership of your own life. And as you said, the contribution to serving others, I really can't think of a better calling and more fulfillment that comes from it. I just have loved this conversation. I want our audience to know you. I know one thing that's great about you is you're looking for the people looking for you. Tell our audience who is the person that you would most like to serve.
I support top performers and high achievers that have a track record of success. And there's something blocking them from reaching the next level. And they want to reach the next level. And they feel challenged with where they are right now. That's it.
I love it. Absolutely. Tell our listeners where they can find you and how do they get in touch
The
with
best
you.
way to reach out to me, if this resonated with you, send me a message on Instagram and just say hi. You know, no expectations. If you know, I truly believe that the universe brings people together for a reason. Lao
Mm-hmm.
Tzu says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I'm just a message away. And there's never going to be any pressure to work with me. Like my clients, they know it's either a fuck yes or a fuck no. And even when it's a fuck yes, I challenge them. I'm like, are you sure? Like,
Yeah.
are you really sure? And so, you know, if there's any uncertainty about that or any fear of pressure, know that I'm just not that guy. And I'm just a message away. Like send me a voice note, send me a DM on Instagram. You can find me at ShapeShift_coach. And the place that I come from today, I want to just, my hope is that you're listening to this, not listening from a lens of comparison. I don't want you to live my life, and I don't want you to do the things that I did. What I hope is that my authentic story gave you a sense of inspiration, a sense of hope, a sense of faith, a sense that you can believe in yourself, and that if you're willing to look at the story of your life, you're here for a reason. You've gotten through whatever you've already gotten through, whether it was laid off, whether it was loss, whether it was pain, suffering, trauma, you got through it. There's a reason for that. And my invitation is for you to ask what your meaning of that is. Not necessarily compare yourself to me and what George did, because there's always going to be somebody more that did something greater. And it's not about that. Compare yourself to you and who you used to be and who you are. And if you want help and you want to have a conversation and chat, reach out to me. And
Yeah. And your life will be better for it. I promise you, my friends, by knowing this man. Thank you, George. This has been brilliant. I so appreciate your time. And I'm so excited for you, what you're doing and all the families and lives that you're changing. You have some fun things going on right now too. Share kind of what's coming. I know the last time we spoke, there was some things brewing that you were really excited about too.
man, there's so much going on. I'm truly grateful for the expansion that I'm experiencing. One thing that I'm doing, I'm partnering with a company called Sail, and they're a startup that's providing group coaching workshops on a weekly basis, using a class pass model. The two classes I'm going to specifically be teaching are overcoming racial identity for Asian men. That's something that I've been very passionate about, because Asian men really have not problems, but Asian men have been conditioned that feeling their emotions is a sign of weakness, and that life is about two things: money and your career. And that builds your sense of self-worth. That's what kind of guided me to do what I did. And so I'm teaching a class about finding out who you really are beneath that, beneath the stereotypes and beneath the conditioning. And then there's another class that's actually very similar, the same thing. It's just more open, and it's just simply called Becoming Who You Are. And we go through mindfulness and spirituality practices and insights that help guide you into the journey inward to really come up with a sense of confidence, not in what you know and what you do, but in who you are. And so that's going to be something you can check out on Sale.
Is it SALE?
Yeah,
Or okay.
SAIL,
SAIL. Okay.
like setting sail.
Okay.
Gosh, what else? There's so much been happening. But those are the two. I think those are the two main things right now that are going.
Have you been on Clubhouse yet?
Oh yeah, totally.
I just had my welcome party let's make sure we follow each other. What a fun, amazing, just connection tools for so many authentic conversations that I've been tapping into.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see with Clubhouse is a huge opening up. I think all the social media platforms will actually copy Clubhouse, so Clubhouse will actually not be known so much as an app, as a feature.
Yeah.
What Clubhouse has revolutionized is that now we can get around the round table with amazing thought leaders, where normally it would cost like 5 figures to go see them, and now we have access to them from the comfort of our bed late at night, and they have powerful discussions and powerful insights and powerful offerings to share. And it's all live, and so you can feel the energy difference. And I think Clubhouse has just been a great addition to the social media platform. So
Absolutely, it's going to be fun. Let's share a stage together sometime. That would be fun.
Yeah, thanks for
Oh
having
my gosh. Well, thank you so much, George, for joining us. I just adore you, and I'm so excited to see what's next and all the lives that you're going to touch as a result of this shift in your life. To my Dream Big Nation listeners, I'm so blessed to be part of your day. I hope these stories are bringing you closer to the next step in your life, the next iteration of what you're meant to become, and giving you some courage to hire yourself. So friends, bless you in this amazing life journey, and I can't wait to see you soon. Bye, George.
Bye, Lisa. Thank you.